Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We are now live, and I'd like to welcome you all to this session. It's the third of the BCP Digital Summit today. We've already had 2 sessions behind us with tremendous attendance, so I'm delighted to welcome all of you here. This session is on automating and automation delivering business resilience, and it's going to feature a case study from British Telecom. I'm delighted to share this session with you because one of the questions that is plaguing everyone right now is how to rethink business strategy and how to future-proof business resilience. So we're going to be hearing a lot about that today. Our speakers are Edward Watson, who's head of automation at British Telecom, and he actually works within a section called Open Reach that he will explain to us. We also have Satish Nair, who's VP and Business Head of Digital Services at Infosys BPM. And we have Satish Sitharamaiah, who's VP and Global Product Head for Assist Edge in EdgeVerve. So Satish, let me hand this over to you. I want to remind everyone this is a live session, and we are taking questions at the end of the session. So Satish, please, over to you.
Thanks, Barbara. Hi, everyone. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you're dialing into the webinar. Great to have all of you part of this thing. As Barbara said, introduced, I'm Satish Sitharamaiah, Vice President and Global Product Head of Assist Edge, which is a leading automation platform. See, we've all been impacted by COVID-19. It has not spared anyone right now. It has changed the way we work, the way we socialize, the way we service our customers, and also in some fundamental ways how we as humans interact. We've also been forced to look at multiple ways in which we can emerge stronger out of this crisis. One pertinent aspect that we can't ignore at this time is that companies will emerge stronger. The ones who have the business resilience strategy are the ones who will emerge stronger from this. And there has been some evidence over the years that points towards this. If you look at some historical data, the top 20% of companies that emerge stronger from recessions are the ones with a sound business resilience strategy. As per research published recently by McKinsey, these companies did better at the outset of the downturn and also coming after these kind of disruptions. On the screen, you will see how resilient companies adopted speed as one of their main drivers to and achieved growth, be it in the form of revenue or in the form of productivity. There is an ongoing survey by SSON where close to 60% of respondents who have responded to us right now have indicated that they would focus more on automation as post-COVID scenario emerges. What we also see across the 300 plus customers of Assist Edge is automation, while was justified and implemented as a tool or a method for driving efficiency, has now, in the context of COVID, has become a critical capability to enable business resilience. On this note, I would like to invite one of our esteemed customers, Edward Watson, the head of digitization at OpenReach, who actually has effectively leveraged automation to deliver benefits to customers and employees as COVID crisis emerged. Over to you, Ed.
Brilliant. Thank you, Satish. So really good introduction for me there, and just to introduce myself and my role. So I head up integrating disruptive technologies like RPA into OpenReach, so we can use those capabilities to deliver better customer service at lower costs. And that means that one of the things I've done is engage with EdgeVerve, and we've ran the first scaled RPA program in OpenReach together, and we've done that over the last 18 months, where we've done things like automate more than 50 processes, so about one every 2 weeks. what I'm going to do is I'll give a very quick overview of OpenReach for those who aren't familiar with the UK telecom sector, because I'm aware I've got a lot of different people on the call. I'll then give a little bit more context about our relationship with EdgeVerve, and then I'll get into our COVID elements. So OpenReach is a wholly owned subsidiary of BT Group. So we're an independent company within BT Group, and I work for OpenReach. We run the UK's digital infrastructure, so we own and maintain the physical network, and our customers are the 640 plus communications providers. Those are people like Sky, Talk, BT, those are the bigger ones you might have heard of, and they sell phone, broadband and Ethernet services to homes and businesses, i.e. our customers are the people who sell you and me, if you're in the UK, phone internet services. So if throughout this presentation I say CPs, I mean communications providers, and they're our customers, and they're the businesses who sell you and me telephony and internet services. So about us, OpenReach and EdgeVerve. So as I mentioned in my bio, we've been partnered with EdgeVerve for 18 months now, over 18 months now, and we use AssistEdge to develop RPA. We also primarily use EdgeVerve developers as we build our RPA. And I think the key thing for this presentation is that we've got an established RPA capability within OpenReach using AssistEdge. And what that means importantly in this context is that we have the technical and administrative prerequisites to doing RPA, as well as a dev team who's experienced in working in our OpenReach system stack. So bit of context there, but onto the good stuff that we've been doing with RPA throughout the current situation. So two little bits of UK government policy that are important to understand. Just before that. So we've been in lockdown in the UK for just over a month now. So that means, as in many places, the vast majority of people are working from home, only leaving home for essential reasons. Schools and retail shops are all closed. Secondly, the UK government has also identified about 1.4 million people who are elderly or who have underlying health conditions, and it's told those people to shield. So that means that they are not to leave their homes except under the most extreme circumstances. So just those two bits of government policy, if you just hold those in your head as I describe what we've done, because that is why we've done what we've done to a large extent. Within that context, our job as OpenReach is to keep the UK connected. More important than ever that we keep the UK connected. We've also got to keep our staff safe, and we've got to keep customers safe as we do that. So within all of that, we found the need for RPA in two scenarios. Both of these examples are really good ones that are keeping our staff and our customers safe. And in both examples, what RPA has allowed us to do is react to an entirely novel situation that we wouldn't have anticipated, but with a system-based solution. And what that has meant is that we haven't needed to stand up significant numbers of temporary desk staff to manage a unique, entirely novel situation. So it's given us that system-based solution to manage things at scale. So, and I'll start referring to the slide now. We developed what we call our wicket keeper robot. And for our non-cricket playing nations on the call, a wicket keeper is someone who stands behind the batter in a game of cricket, and they catch the ball if it goes behind the batter. So in a similar way, this robot is there to catch any tasks that our engineer can't complete on the day because the customer or a member of that customer's household is showing COVID symptoms, so the engineer can't go in. It allows the engineer to return a task with a new reason code that we created in our workflow systems. Our robot at that stage picks up the task and postpones it for 21 days, i.e. the point at which we can safely complete the task. So this is one that means that our engineers can be kept safe, and also we keep track of what we need to do from a customer perspective. Since we stood this robot up, we've had more than 4,000 transactions go through that so far. The second robot that we created is our at-risk customer robot. So what this one does is, and it's a particularly good example of how we can stand up RPA very rapidly, particularly if it's a simple process. So prior to the government giving us the information about who specifically those 1.4 million vulnerable people were, we as an organization wanted a method to be able to prioritize those people if they were without service, I think for obvious reasons. So we as a company wanted to move quickly on that so that we could prioritize those vulnerable people if they were without service, and also keep them safe when we send an engineer out. I ensure our engineer knows that this is an individual who is vulnerable and is shielding. So what we did was we created a process whereby our CP, so our customers, could flag to us if they had a vulnerable customer go to them who was without service. And they did that by using a keyword in the notes field as they placed the order with us or the fault report with us. It's at that stage that our robot picks up, well, trawls the notes of every order and fault placement that we receive. Trawls those every 15 minutes, and any that contain the keyword that we need, it sends those to our task dispatch system. Our task dispatch system can then prioritize those tasks, and it SMSs the engineer when they pick that task up, and it tells our engineer that it's a vulnerable customer that they've got a task for. On this at-risk customer robot as well, we're just moving into phase 2, or we've moved into phase 2, and we're currently working on that, where we're also building a robot to expedite the appointment on any orders that require an appointment, because our task dispatch system can't do that itself. So we've got a phase 2, but phase 1 was stood up very rapidly. This has been quite a busy robot, and it's done more than 7,000 transactions so far. So that's what we've done in response. In terms of, just to give a very quick overview of the development cycle as we did this, first off, as with everything, we needed rapid agreement and briefing on the processes. I think the big thing we've noticed in the COVID situation is there's been a massive acceleration of the normal change cycles. Both of these things required briefings to our 18,000 strong engineer workforce, as well as our 640 plus customers, business customers. So yeah, we got all that defined rapidly to start off with. Then from a development perspective, you can see, as hopefully the slide demonstrates, we delivered in increments. So the wicket keeper robot, for example, in 2 weeks, we delivered increment 1, which was to create a list of these tasks that engineers couldn't complete for a desk team to manually postpone. A week after, we'd also automated the transaction of postponing the appointment as well, such that there was an end-to-end delivery by week 3, but we delivered in increments, and we had something live within 2 weeks. And then also for the at-risk robot, live within a week, and moving on to phase 2 to perform the next function that we'd like to there. The things that enabled us to do that, four real big things that enabled us to deliver those things that rapidly. Firstly is access to system experts who could rapidly define the technical workflows that we needed to follow, and exactly how we needed to interact with each system, be that via API or be that via screen scraping. So access to those system experts was critical factor number 1. Secondly was just the acceleration of the normal business change cycle. We wouldn't have been able to deliver an end-to-end process in a week for the at-risk customer robot if we hadn't also been rapidly rebriefing people. Thirdly, our EdgeVerve developers were essential. They know the Assist Edge software really well. They've got experience working in our OpenReach system stack, and they're absolutely essential to the rapid development of this stuff. I know we might have a few of them on the webinar, so big shout out and big thank you to those people who really got us going on this one. So thanks team. And fourth, the existing robotics portfolio that we had, again, just meant that we had all the technical and admin prerequisites in place. We had the servers. We by and large had all the system accesses that we needed. So that helped us really hit the ground running. So that's what we've done in OpenReach. 2 robots, one to catch jobs that engineers can't complete and then postpone the appointment till when it's safe to complete them. And secondly, another robot for our CP customers to tell us if there's a vulnerable person without service so that we can prioritize them and keep them safe as we provide them with that service. So thank you very much for listening, and I'll hand back over to Satish.
Thanks, Ed. Thanks a lot for sharing this very insightful applicability and application of automation. We're delighted Assist Edge could be part of this journey for BT OpenReach. Thank you very much for Ed. How usual is it to see Satish introduce another Satish? But here we go. So let me welcome Satish Nair, and who is the Vice President and Business Head at Infosys BPM, and Satish, please take it over.
Thanks, Satish, and thanks for introducing. The objective was also to make sure that we have some fun by having 2 Satishes on the webinar together. What I will be talking about today is broadly 3 areas. As all of us went through the changes in business processes, day-to-day work necessitated by the COVID situation, we started seeing very different applicability and priorities and the narrative around what automation and bots can actually do from a business process standpoint. Some of them also meant cracking long, established rules on how bot needs to work, what kind of work it does, and the change management that goes behind it. My name is Satish. I run digital processes for Infosys in the BPM side of the world. Right? I'll be talking about a unit where today, at that point of time, we had about 1,100 plus bots live. This was a situation where, a month before total lockdown, we knew something was coming up. We knew that we had to prepare for it, but we had across the unit, right, this particular unit, about 1,100 bots. And the interesting part is 97% of them, luckily it is not, the coronavirus happens to be not transferable to the bots itself, which meant that 97% of them were not impacted and were live, right? And some of them, I'll talk about 2 stories where you see the change from people's expectation from a bot on efficiency to what it really meant from a business resilience. As luck would have it, the whole COVID scenarios played out among one of the most tougher parts of most organizations, which is a period end close and a quarter end, right at that. Now, the first story I'm going to be talking about is European global, actually it's a global high-tech manufacturer in the health tech manufacturer, right? Now, here was a situation where you had a pretty large number, it's about 110 odd digital workers working on their core month-end closing space, right? Come month-end, there are 200 plus analysts. This is in the middle of transferring work remotely. These are people who used to work and close the book sitting out of office. You had to move all of these 200 plus analysts moving out into their work from home kind of a scenario. Within 4 hours, you had all 110 bots running, right? What does it mean? It meant that connectivity was established, changes were made to where it was looking at, security protocols established, right? And truly the triggering of BCP in a bot scenario was exactly 4 hours for it to be up and running, right? And most importantly, it also meant that there were fundamental change management that and ability to execute that started getting triggered. For example, this particular bot factory used to run about 90% automation. By the time we hit the lockdown, this had gone up to about 98% of automation, which meant there was a team that was working to make sure that the rest of the automation requirement was done in a very short period. Change management approvals, technology approvals literally got fast track. I think the way Ed was mentioning, the ability for an organization to actually deliver that became a lot better. And this collaboration suddenly reached a very different high point. Now, the bots were scheduled to run in a certain way. Now, come quarter end, be it changes into processes of running it extendable through the weekends, running those quarter end processes, right, was completely different. So you had a situation where technology was enabled, number one, you had change management that was triggered, you had business priorities established, and you made sure that the quarter end business objective was actually completed because of the fact that you had this 110 odd digital workers that came without any baggage, without a COVID impact, and came online. The second story that I'm going to be talking about is a completely different space. This is of a global financial services major. They had about 30 odd digital workers in this space, right, and 100+ analysts. Now, the area of work that they were looking at is in the space of fraud, right? This is an area where potentially, given the downtime or potential downtime of employees, there could either be a backlog or there could be a potential fraud that actually comes in. Right? These bots were running as secondary backups for analysts looking at potential areas. Once you have the analysts do something and it is getting validated at the background, whether the validation is made by a genuine person, whether it was fraud, it was about chargeback recovery, it was about liability decisions that were getting taken, right? And any disputes that were actually getting taken in the credit card process in this case, right? Now, come the day of the lockdown, the first shift that happened is a mindset that all of us who've worked in the automation space goes through. Whom do you trust more? Is the trust more on the bot or on the human being that interprets any of these rules and logic and is able to run these processes? Day one of this process, we realized that the capacity and the capability for the human executives, right, the analysts to actually take on that load becomes somewhat limited. The call was taken to flip it around to say bots will do the first cut analysis and humans do the backup. Now, that is a fundamental change. That is a question that a lot of us, I'm assuming the airline industry has cracked it. I'm told right from the A320 days, the autopilot kicks in. But as business processes, we were hesitant to move into that. But given the business resiliency and the expectation from business of backup that was required, the ability for a team to come together, validate what's actually happening in this space, take a decision to have bot first with human being the support system and doing the QC became a lot faster, right? In this particular case, again, less than 4 hours, you had bots becoming primary, right, and executing the task that was completely in the other way around, where humans were performing and humans supporting the bots in terms of auditing and everything else that was actually going on while the systems were getting set up for the agents, while the volume was ramping up for the agents, you had bot take primary. I think the question for each one of us we need to reframe in our mind is if it is possible during times like this, how do we really look at the direction of bots beyond efficiency parameter, but looking at it from how do we use bots to drive business resiliency? How do we make sure that they are the safeguards against what we are thinking from automation, right? I mean, not from efficiency, but much more from business recovery itself going forward, right? The last slide, in my view, I hope I don't know whether I'm changing my slide. I hope I'm. Yeah, thanks. That I just wanted to leave this slide because, what goes behind some of these quadrants, all of us have gone through some of these processes, right, where people work through the night, get tired. And by the way, behind this, all of this lovely mail was literally 100+ bots working tirelessly. Obviously, they don't need breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but working tirelessly to make this happen, and the humans keeping a very close eye while delivering this business result for this organization. Thank you. Thanks, Satish. Over to you.
Thanks, Satish. And those were some very insightful examples, both given by Satish and also Ed, on how select companies have actually leveraged automation as a fundamental capability to drive business resilience. See, what we have seen is that this is a story that is repeating in many of our clients, and we do see that they intend to double down on automation and strengthen their automation capabilities, be it from a technology standpoint or from a people perspective as well, to be able to leverage this going forward. Now, to do this, companies have to look at automation as a strategic lever and position this as a strategic program within the enterprise. And in the context of a strategic positioning, I'd like to spend just a few minutes talking about what a cohesive platform, automation platform would look like, and what are those fundamental capabilities that organization would need if they were to exploit this capability in not only from an efficiency standpoint, also from a resiliency perspective, right? So if you were to look at the Assist platform as an example, there are three fundamental pillars to this. One is capabilities around discovering your process. So know the process that you intend to automate, because when you jump into automation, you will see that there are lots of variations and nuances to the process, and the success of automation may not be favorable or satisfactory, right? As an example, the industry average of success rate of automation stands still somewhere around 60% or so. And one of the primary reasons it points towards is that companies actually are not fully aware or appreciate their own processes. So process discovery is an important capability. The other one is around automation, and to pick the right kind of capability to automate. See, so be it attended automation or unattended automation. I think we saw in the examples that Satish spoke and Ed spoke, significant part of it was unattended automation. But there are also many scenarios where attended automation becomes important, and also a lot of cognitive capabilities come into play. So once the processes are well understood, is to figure out, what are the right kind of capabilities to be brought forth to try to do the automation. And the last part is the orchestration. And this process orchestration is about bringing the human into the loop, right? And which means that the platform needs to have some fundamental capabilities around learnability. So the bots, while they are codified to do certain things, and there are always exceptions to the process. So which means the humans will have to come and address those exceptions, and the bots will have to learn as we go. So this whole orchestration from an end-to-end process standpoint and orchestration from a human and digital interaction is very important. So when you look at a very cohesive platform from an automation perspective, you will see that it needs to have process discovery capabilities, process automation capabilities, and also process orchestration capabilities. The other important thing that I would like to mention, where this talks about enterprise-grade capabilities, is to make sure that the platform actually scales. In fact, many of the examples that the two examples where Satish mentioned, and also many examples that BPM has been part of, have hundreds and hundreds of bots running. So it is very important to make sure that the platform actually has invested and has capabilities to scale. And also it has the necessary technical architecture to drive reliability, and also has enough capabilities from a security and privacy standpoint. So it is important when you look at an automation platform that you ensure that it is scalable, it is reliable, and also it is secure, so that way large-scale enterprises can actually drive some significant critical automation and sound on top of it. Given the condition that we're all in, these are difficult situations and difficult conditions that we're all in, and companies are. From an assisted standpoint, we have an offer for all enterprise around the world, and I'll just leave this offer on the table for all of you to take a look at it. It is essentially 10 free bots that you can actually you will be able to leverage, and we will be providing certain training capabilities free of cost and certain consulting to get you up and running, and so you can have so at least 10 digital workers who can help you through these difficult times. With this, let me hand this back to Barbara. Back to you, Barbara.
Thanks so much, Satish. So we want to give you the opportunity, of course, not just to learn, it's not just to educate these sessions, but also to test some of the technology that you're hearing about here. So quick questions to you, and please indicate where you sit. What would you be interested in doing from here on? Would you be interested in knowing more details about Assist Edge free bot offer? Are you interested in seeing a demo of Assist Edge? Would you be interested in speaking to an automation expert on the topic? Or would you like more information about how automation can help manage COVID-19? So please click the relevant option, and we're going to leave this slide on the screen as we move on to some of the questions. So we've had a number of questions coming in for all three of our speakers today, and I'd like to remind you this is live. Please post your questions right now in the question box, and they'll pop up, and we'll try to get through as many as we can. So let me start with this one, and I think, Edward, this one's for you. What was the biggest challenge you faced in developing these bots with the team? So if you had to say the biggest, the most significant hurdle, which one would that have been?
So I think when developing automation like this, the two biggest things that normally challenges are getting that end-to-end process and procedure understanding, both from a business and a technical perspective. That's normally the biggest challenge. So that end-to-end understanding, as Satish mentioned in his bit as well. Following that is normally the system connectivity. So do you go via an API? Do you go via screen scrape? So those are normally the two biggest challenges. In this instance, those continue to be the two biggest challenges, but we just overcame them more rapidly than we normally do. So the biggest challenge, I would say, in this instance was the former. It was getting that end-to-end process and procedure understanding. You can imagine with our Wicketkeeper robot, for example, that about pushing appointments out into the future, that is a hugely complex process flow. It involves billing, it involves informing the customer, it involves talking to our resource planning system, it involves talking to our dispatch system. It's an incredibly complex process with multiple different experts. That was getting that process understood and getting the connectivity to the required systems to do all that was still the biggest challenge, but we overcame that challenge a lot more quickly because we had more direct access to the people who were defining those things, and able to help us understand what they were. So still very much that end-to-end process and procedure understanding, normally the biggest challenge that I've faced, and still the biggest challenge in this instance.
Yeah. Ed, can I add on to that? One of the other questions is, how did you decide to go via RPA instead of workflow systems? So could you just expand on that?
Yeah, so yes, really good question. In terms of which option we choose, normally strategic system is our first option, and we in this instance, strategic system was our first option, and we used RPA where we didn't have that strategic system configurability. So these were novel scenarios where RPA came in and enabled us to do something that our strategic systems weren't able to do. You can probably see that in the COVID situation, things are coming about that we would never have designed into our strategic systems. Like in what scenario would we ever, for a certain reason that an engineer can't complete a job, we would kick an appointment out for 21 days without talking to the customer about whether they'd be in their home or not. I mean, that's a pretty inconceivable scenario in normal situations, and that's that's where we chose things. It's also worth bearing in mind how closely integrated in these instances, and in generally most RPA developments, strategic systems and RPA is entwined. So it wasn't a straight choice of develop these processes via RPA or develop them via the strategic workflow. It was more we need to develop this end-to-end process, this brand new end-to-end process of wicket keeper or at-risk customers. Where can our strategic system do something? Where can our RPA do something? At risk is a good example of that. No strategic system could grab the keyword from the order placement notes and give that to our task dispatch system, but a robot could, and then our task dispatch system could do the rest. So yeah, it's a where there are gaps, where there are novel situations, but we do remember that these things are nearly always very tightly entwined.
Another question
Really
here that I
question.
think is interesting is the value of having a BPM partner alongside the RPA partner. So the question is, how did that come about? And I suppose what I would add myself to that, Ed, is, would those skills, the BPM type of skills, have been available otherwise in-house? Because I think a lot of organizations are in a situation where skills right now is the big gap. So what was your just thinking making in terms of tapping those skills?
So certainly from in terms of actual developers on Assist Edge, it's really expertise in the software and like I say, those skills aren't freely available, and EdgeVerve was a good partner in providing those. We did try some in-house development on Assist Edge, but fundamentally Assist Edge, a bit like Blue Prism, is more a tool for developers. So having really good developers is important. We've got a long-standing RPA team we've got really close relationships with. So that's it's really that skills retention, both technical skills on the product, but also within our own system stack. And yeah, I mean, a big company like ours, lots of options on the table, but certainly we found from a developer perspective that working direct with EdgeVerve has been a really good option for us.
Question for Satish Sitharamia. One of the things you mentioned was process orchestration alongside automation and discovery. Explain a little bit more about the relevance of having all three of those and where the gaps might be if I focus merely on, the first two sections.
Yeah, good question, Barbara. It depends on the journey and the maturity of the enterprise, and obviously, one will scale from one to another. As an example, traditionally companies have jumped into doing automation, and once you start automating, you realize that the process know-how is not updated or it's not relevant, so you invest on the process discovery side. And then even after that investment, the reality is, as I mentioned earlier, it is not foolproof. There are gaps. There are realities in the world where no standard process will be able to handle all the situations. So there are variations out there. So it is important to, as I mentioned, to bring in learnability into the whole automation, right? It is not, otherwise it can become very static. And that's where process orchestration becomes very important, where the orchestrator will pass on all the transactions that the automated bots were not able to handle or close, and then allow the human to come in and interact and try to address them. And the beauty is, during those interactions, the orchestrator will be able to learn how the humans solve, and over a period of time, it will have enough knowledge to be able to, make an attempt to address it. So that is one part of the orchestration, and the other one is going back to the workflow that you mentioned. See, the holy grail of this is automation along with workflow flow tools coming together. So the orchestration is also kind of a step in that direction to start integration towards workflow tools. So that's how, Barbara, I see some of these things coming together, and it is important, however, that the users of the system kind of understand the interplay between these things and adopt it accordingly.
Mm. You know, we've had two sessions running this morning on obviously on BCP, and the first of which covered some of the data in a survey that we ran recently, and the second of which focused on how to readdress your BCP plans, the current plans. But I guess the big picture for this particular audience, for shared services and GBS leaders around the world, the big picture is how do they take the trends that were already happening, right? The last 2 years, 3 years, we've seen this increase in basic automation and then more intelligent automation. That was already happening. Now we have a burning platform. Now we have this disastrous environment, which is causing everyone to realize, as the data that you showed highlights, that automation is certainly part of the solution. So my question to you all really is, to what extent is there an awareness within enterprises already, customers you speak to, or Ed at your organization, to what extent is a future digital workforce or redefining the future of work a critical, real strategy that's going to get you out of here? And it's an open floor. Who wants to comment? Ed, maybe I'll let you go with that. So, you know, again, the question is,
yes, we won't all rush at once. It's only no. So it's I think from an OpenReach perspective, using capabilities like this was already a very important part of our strategy around customer service and cost reduction. I think so that's always been there. I think what this has highlighted is given us some really good success stories that are very public and easy to understand, which is great. And two, it's been a brilliant learning opportunity as to, okay, so where do you actually see the major bottlenecks when you're trying to develop RPA? What are the things that actually stop you developing something successfully and quickly? And it's been fantastic in, one, identifying those, and also actually executing on solutions that previously you would have only dreamed of, like gaining consent from our 640 customers to introduce a new process in under a week. Now we wouldn't do that in normal circumstances, regulatory reasons for one, quite rightly so. But it does. We're living in totally unprecedented. Or we're living out solutions that we would only have imagined previously. So I think that's the key thing for me. It's highlighted the bottlenecks such that we can more easily imagine the strategy that OpenReach had, what was looking for anyway, and to use RPA to significantly transform things.
Ed, thank you so much. And I'm afraid that does bring us to the end of our session today. I think in summary, what we've been hearing here, Ed, you've had a real world problem. And what you've beautifully illustrated is how the technology tools of AssistEdge, along with the BPM knowledge and understanding, can drive solutions to your real world problems. And I think that's what everyone listening in on this call right now is trying to figure out. I'd encourage you, go ahead and test out. EdgeVerve is providing some of these solutions for you for free to test them out. Go ahead and do that. It's the only way you're going to move forward. Please keep coming back to us. We're very much a resource for you, and we like to bring the solutions to the problems. So thank you so much for joining the session. Thank you to both Satish's and to Ed very much for your time today. I'd like to remind everyone that our next session, it's our final of the BCP Digital Summit, starts in 15 minutes. And to make it easy, all you'll have to do when this one ends is click on the green button which says next session on your screen. It'll take you straight there, and then you have 15 minutes for a brief break. Again, thanks to all the questions that came in. I hope we managed to get to most of them. I'd encourage all the listeners to connect with our speakers on LinkedIn, because that's where you can always find them and always get answers to your questions. So with that, thank you to everyone for your time and for taking part. And this concludes this session.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.